Hello, students. This is the very first lesson of a unit in logical reasoning. Our first lesson will cover conditional statements. Let's begin with a definition. A conditional statement is a statement that can be written in if-then form. Here's a couple examples. If I clean my room, then I can go to the movies. Another one. If we win the game tonight, then we'll make it to playoffs. A conditional statement is any statement that you can write in the form of if something, then something. The symbolic form of a conditional statement is P, arrow pointing to the right, Q. The P represents the first part of the statement. The Q represents the second part of the statement. This arrow is the symbol for the conditional statement. It can be read several ways. If, blah, 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 comma, then, blah, blah, blah. Those blah, blah, blahs are whatever the P and Q is of the statement. We'll talk about that in a second. It could also be read, whatever P is implies whatever Q is. Cleaning my room implies that I'll get to go to the football game. Okay, now let's break down those P's and Q's. A conditional statement has two parts. The P represents the hypothesis. Been doing too much triangle stuff. The Q represents the conclusion. Therefore, the hypothesis is the phrase that follows the word if. The conclusion is the part of the sentence that follows the phrase then. Now I have a couple examples here that'll help us out. My directions say, given the conditional statement, underline the hypothesis one time and double underline the conclusion. Okay? All right, here's our if-then. The phrase after the word if represents the hypothesis. I'm going to put a P under that. P is our symbol for hypothesis. The phrase after the word then represents the conclusion. I'm going to put a Q under that to represent the conclusion. So in this sentence, we win tonight is the hypothesis. The conclusion of that is we will be in the playoffs. Here's another one. If you go to SHS, then you're a Spartan. The hypothesis is that you go to SHS. If that part is true, then we can conclude that you are a Spartan. The phrase following the word if is considered the hypothesis. The phrase following the word then is considered the conclusion. Well, what if the sentence is not written in a very simple if-then form? Check out this next one. When Mrs. Denton doesn't have coffee, she's cranky. Okay, first thing is, I would try to rewrite the statement in if-then form. When Mrs. Denton doesn't have coffee, she's cranky. Well, it feels like English class. What's the cause and effect in this sentence? If I don't drink my coffee, then I'll be cranky. So it feels like it's going to split right here. Let's see if we can write this out. If Mrs. Denton doesn't have coffee, Okay, there's my hypothesis. I'm not getting any coffee. So my conclusion is going to be, then she's cranky. By writing it in if-then form, it'll be really easy for us to pick out what's the hypothesis and what's the conclusion. After the word if, Mrs. Denton doesn't have coffee. So, in my original sentence, there's Mrs. Denton doesn't have coffee. That would be my hypothesis. Then she's cranky. This will be my conclusion. This was a start to our lesson on conditional statements. Pause here and give yourself a checkup on what we just discussed. Your independent practice is IXL I1, and you're working to a level 50. Good luck and come back for more.